right back.
Right. So welcome to Webinar Wednesdays. Thank you all for coming. We're very excited to have Cristabelle with us today. She is a singer, songwriter, and speaker on brain injury. She's also the founder of Hope After Head Injury. She spoke at our conference 2 years ago now, I suppose it would be. Got my signed book right here. But we thought we'd have her come back and let us know what she's been up to and do it in a little different format than at the conference. But those of you that aren't familiar with Webinar Wednesdays, we have these every other Wednesday from 1:30 to 3. They are recorded and then archived onto our website as well. So CEU requests will be on our website as well as the recording after we are done. And so if you want to request CEUs, just fill that in and it will email it to me and I will get you your certificate quickly. But yeah, our next webinar Wednesday is December 2nd, and that's going to be Emily Kringle. She's a student, a doctoral student at University of Chicago, and she's working on kind of some stroke things on being non-sedentary after stroke and how that can help your recovery. So join us for that too. But I'm going to let Cristabelle take it away, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Carly. So it's great to be back with the North Dakota Brain Injury Network. I love you guys so much. And it's nice to see you even virtually. So thanks for asking me to come do this. I think probably the best way to do this is if you guys have things or questions during the presentation, if you could put them in the chat. And then at the end, we could interact and answer questions at the end. So is that good for everyone? Yeah? Okay, that's probably the best way to do this. So guess what? I have a PowerPoint. So here it comes. Ta-da! Hope Survives. So today, of course, Hope Survives is kind of my theme, my tagline. And I put a little brain with a heart in it because we're going to talk about learn to accept and live with brain injury, but yet still have hope for the future today. So to start out, I'm just going to share a little bit of my journey for some of you guys who might not know me yet. I am Cristabelle. I am a brain injury survivor, and I had my first traumatic brain injury over 10 years ago. So this slide shows a little bit of the journey that I went on earlier on in the injury. My first traumatic brain injury was the first of many re-injuries through the years, which I am going to talk about a little bit today. But when I first had my brain injury, there was really a lack of awareness about brain injury and concussions because, we just didn't know. And the thing about brain injury is you don't really know about it until it happens to you. You don't really, unless you know somebody who's had a brain injury or concussion, it's really hard to find awareness. And over the last 10 years, there's been so much more awareness thanks to organizations like the North Dakota Brain Injury Network that have been working so hard to bring awareness, and the Brain Injury Association of America. And so thankfully, there's a lot more awareness now. But when it first happened, we didn't even know that brain injury support groups were a thing. I'd never met anybody else with a brain injury. I just didn't know. And so it was also hard to find the right medical care. Within the medical community, there's also been a ton of new research and awareness, even among doctors and professionals in the last 10 years. And so it's been a journey. But earlier on, the first neurologist that I saw, I didn't even see until a little bit after my TBI happened. And the first, one of the things he said was, I'd be laughing about it in 6 weeks. I would be fine, to not worry about it. 6 weeks came and went. I was worse. I was not better. And then when my mom was expressing them some of the difficulties that I was having, I had trouble doing simple addition. And before my brain injury, I was really accomplished student. I was in pre-calculus, and I could still do some of the complex math stuff, but I couldn't add. And he said, well, she's a girl. She doesn't need to know math anyway. And so, um, needless to say, we eventually had to find another doctor because that was not great. But some of the symptoms and struggles that I had was relearning how to get dressed and take a shower. I had short-term memory loss and long-term memory issues. I didn't actually say how it happened. My brain injury happened from playing a game at my church's youth group. So when it was my turn to run, all the boys on my team ran behind me, and I ended up going headfirst into a cement wall. My head bounced off the floor. I lost consciousness. We're not actually sure how long. And they didn't call my parents until the many thing happened. And so I seemed fine, normal that night. It was a couple of days of my brain swelling before these symptoms really started to present. So it was Sunday night that it happened, and I just started declining. And by Wednesday, I couldn't walk straight. I had blurry vision. I couldn't hold conversations. And it was like, I know now that my brain was probably swelling pretty intensely, but we had no idea. I didn't go to the ER. I didn't know. I didn't know that we didn't know when you hit your head, like what can happen. And so a common misconception, I think, is that brain injury symptoms might present right away, or that, brain injuries can happen in any sort of way. Car accidents, falls, all sorts of things. And so you really never know when that moment, the one moment that changes your life, is going to happen. But to continue, some of the other symptoms I struggled with was a decreased sense of smell and taste. I really could barely smell or taste anything for about 8 or 9 years. And then it came back, which was really cool. So that's one of those hope things too. That's really cool to see. But yeah, I could barely smell. I could barely taste. I started eating spicy food where before my brain injury, I couldn't even handle spicy food at all. And it's because I could sort of taste it, or like really, really rich desserts I could sort of taste. So I liked them. But yeah, I struggled with my ability to read. I had slurred speech, aphasia. I struggled with being overwhelmed and overstimulating. I would behave like a young child, like tugging on my mom's shirt and just trying to, just not knowing how to, function. Extreme neuro fatigue, and all the more while looking fine. So brain injury feels like a jumbled up puzzle. That's one of the things that I think of this metaphor of, you have a puzzle and it might be put together. And then if you shade it all up, there might be some places where the pieces are still connected, but then that little section of connected pieces might be disconnected from the other section of connected pieces. And so it's like certain things might connect, but then it's super random trying to figure out what connects and what doesn't. So I put a little picture of socks on here as a memory jog for myself to tell you the story about the socks. So after my brain injury, I struggled with knowing how to get dressed. And one of the examples is I would try and put my socks on top of my shoes. I knew that they went on my feet, but I couldn't remember the order that the socks went on. And so in my head, I was like, this goes on my foot. But I didn't remember I put on the sock first and then the shoe. And so that's an example of some of the types of confusion that can happen with brain injury. So for the early journey of my recovery, I went to lots of different therapies, more traditional therapies like occupational, physical, cognitive, and speech therapy. But we struggled with finding good care and with insurance covering it. When I first started in concussion therapies, I was really not doing well. And the therapist, you know how when you start, they set a goal? So they set my goals pretty low because I'm here like not able to get dressed or do my morning routine or remember to put toothpaste on my toothbrush before brushing my teeth. And so, they were working with me on these really foundational things. And after I met those goals, after 6 weeks, they said they couldn't keep me anymore because of insurance. My mom came to pick me up one day and they were like, this was her last day. And my mom's like, I'm still helping her in the bathroom. Like, you think she's ready to graduate from therapy? And they were like, well, we can't keep her. She's doing fine. There's nothing we can do. So my parents really didn't know what to do from there. And they found an outside of the box therapy called tomatis therapy. And tomatis therapy is typically used for children with autism. It is a technique of occupational therapy that I believe started in France. And we found a therapy center called A Total Approach. And you wear headphones and you listen to music at different frequencies. And they work on resetting the bones and the crystals in your ear. You do dual tasking type things, such as, listening to music, tapping one side of your leg, things like that. And the tomatis therapy worked really well for me. And I had a flat effect after my brain injury, and my mom credits the tomatis therapy with giving me my smile back. It was the first time I smiled spontaneously, but we did not find this treatment until a year and a half after my TBI. If I remember the dates correctly. I sometimes mix up dates. And so if you want to hear like a more accurate timeline, I actually just released a new podcast called Hope Survives. And on the first episode, I invited my mom on the podcast with me to share her perspective. And so she can talk, you can hear her perspective on that. But I know that it was like a year and a half, 2 years after that I was actually going to the tomatis therapy, and it really helped with those things that are like not tangibly measurable. Like, how do you measure she doesn't smile spontaneously? How do you treat that? It's hard to pinpoint these things that are different after brain injury. There are so many different things that are just hard to explain. And so the tomatis therapy helped me a lot earlier on in my journey. And so, yeah, they evaluated me. And like I said, it's typically used for children with autism, and it has amazing results in that. But they were able to work with me with my brain injury as well. So brain injury affects the whole family. I want to talk a little bit about family dynamics. So I'm the oldest child, and being a young teenager when I was injured, I had 2 younger sisters, and the dynamics became really interesting because my middle sister started having to be like the older sister because she started having to take care of me. And then my baby sister was 4 when it happened. She's a lot younger than me. And she and I became like buds. We would watch Sesame Street together. She would teach me how to play Chutes and Ladders. She would set up coloring for us. She took charge of me. She's 4, right? She's in preschool. And so my mom told me this story that one time my mom had to, I think, run to the store or take my other sister somewhere. I don't remember where they were going. I actually don't remember this at all. I just know the story that my mom told me. I don't remember it. And my dad, I guess, was home, but he was somewhere in a different room. And my mom was like, hey, I'm just heading out. And my baby sister was like, Mom, I can't watch Cristabelle today. And she was like, because she felt like she was babysitting me. And my mom's like, don't worry, dad's home. He's just in another room. And she was like, so if that gives you a level of, where I was at, but it's really interesting how brain injury, it doesn't just happen to the injured person. It happens to the whole family in a number of ways. The financial stress and burden of treatments, the tomatis therapy that I talked about that helped me so much, it was not covered under insurance. And my parents went through like all their savings on my medical treatments, and they still are feeling the effects of that today. But my mom says, but my daughter's doing better. And so, it's like they're in a financial situation where they wouldn't have been in, but at the same time, they're like, well, that's that's their story to tell. But I just wanted to mention, because for whatever you've been going through in your journey, the financial stress is real, and that can really contribute to a lot of the struggles and the emotional burden. In my journey, I began to write music after my brain injury happened. I never wrote a song before the brain injury, and within the first year, I was writing like hundreds of songs. And music and singing really helped with my communication and my speech. You can't tell now, but I really, really struggled with speaking and holding conversations in a way that made sense and expressing my emotions. I had frontal lobe issues, so I would either like fly off the handle and have temper tantrums. My mom would describe it like toddlers' temper tantrums, but with the strength of a teenager. So I like broke a door jamb, like slamming a door. Like my mom would have to physically hold me down at times because the anger and the violent behavior was just out of control. And for anyone who knows me, that's not my personality. Like I'm not I'm a very, I think I'm a very kind person. I tend to be, pretty calm and loving. But with a brain injury, your behavior becomes to the point where you can't control it. And so there's a lot of shame that you deal with, because it's like, I snapped at this person, or I flew off the handle, or I was like crying, and you feel like you're overreacting all the time, but you can't control it. And so for me, music was an outlet that I could express my emotions and how I was feeling. So yeah, when my brain injury first happened, the doctors didn't even think I would finish high school. And they told my parents to be prepared that I wouldn't even be able to get through high school. But I got an IEP plan, which is an individualized education plan. And that really helped to give me flexibility to get through school. There were a lot of times that I would go to therapies and miss school for them. I'd go to the hospital in the morning for therapy. I'd go to school in the afternoon. When I did the tomatis therapy, I would have to miss weeks of school at a time. And the IEP plan helped to make all that possible, as well as getting accommodations on my classwork, extended time, and things like that. But the social dynamics at school were not the best. I was bullied in school by the kids who used to be my closest friends, and then also by just random kids in the hallways. Like they would say like, Cristabelle hit her head and now she's so stupid. And they would just like, bump into me on purpose because they knew my balance was bad. And it got so out of control that the administration had a like parent teacher conference with my parents, and the teachers were crying because they couldn't control the bullying. And so we actually moved to a different state. I grew up in Delaware. We moved to Pennsylvania, which is where I currently live, to get me in a new environment because the bullying was that out of control. As well as Pennsylvania's special education program is a lot better funded than Delaware's, because Pennsylvania is a bigger state. And Pennsylvania actually has the Brain Steps program, which is one of the leading concussion return to learn things in the nation. It's the national model for concussions. So Pennsylvania was a good place to be with a brain injury. And I repeated a grade over again in high school. not just academically, but I needed social and cognitive adjustments and help. And so, taking an extra year in high school, my parents decided it was the best thing for me. And I was a little resistant at first, but now I will say that was the best decision we ever made. There is no reason to rush through high school, especially if you have a brain injury, because yeah, that's what I have to say about that. But I also got re-injured. I got another brain injury actually from I slipped on the ice waiting for the school bus in the morning. Or I wasn't even waiting for the bus. My mom drove me to the bus stop and we waited in the car because it was cold out. And then when the bus pulled up, I got out of the car to walk over to the bus and I slipped on the ice. And I didn't even hit my head that time, but I bounced my body so hard. The whole side of my body got a huge bruise on it. And at first, we didn't realize it was concussion because I thought you had to hit your head to get a concussion. And that is another huge misconception. You do not have to hit your head to get a concussion. Anything that can jar your head and your body enough for your brain to bounce inside of your skull can cause a concussion. So, yeah, that was a long journey. I was eventually able to attend college, and I went to a very, very small college. I had academic accommodations. My professors worked with me. I got re-injured again. I went to a tiny liberal arts school where 25% of the students have disabilities, or at least did when I went there. And they had an ADA compliant dorm that I lived in, and I got a single room all 4 years, which took away from the normal stressors that, going to college would have. It was so tiny. It was less than 2,000 total students. And there was only one dining hall. There was only one street that went through the college, and they had a good music department. And so it was a really good fit for me. And I definitely would not have made it through were it not for my professors working with me one-on-one. I would get extensions on my assignments, even so far as through summer break or through winter break. If I couldn't get everything together before finals, they would give me medical extension. And so it was tough, but by God's grace, I made it through. And I don't have this in the PowerPoint, but actually, just a couple months ago or earlier this year, I actually started online graduate school, which I'll talk about that later. But that was like, I never thought I could do that with brain injury, like never. And so, but I'm going to address that in a little bit. So, common struggles for survivors. Adjusting to life with brain injury. I put that first because headaches, overstimulation, fatigue, all these physical symptoms that you hear, I don't think is as big of a struggle as realizing that your life has changed and adjusting to needing to use coping strategies and things to help with your brain injury symptoms. Having to prioritize and schedule your whole life around TBI, that's hard because you're dealing with cognitive fatigue and neurofatigue. And so it's like, you never know how exhausted you're going to be or if you're going to have brain and energy to get through what you need to get through. And so that's a struggle. Overstimulation is nearly constant. It's hard to go anywhere in public. Visual stimulation, looking at screens, reading. There are a lot of vision issues that can come with brain injury. So your eyes not necessarily tracking together can cause issues with being visually overstimulated, as well as auditory overstimulation and just not being able to process information. Daily chronic pain and symptoms, feeling misunderstood because it's invisible, medical appointments, insurance and expenses, re-injuries, setbacks, new symptoms. The journey never really stops. So more unseen struggles are stress on the family and the caregiver. That's something that I don't think is talked about enough, but it's not just the struggles for the survivor that's problem. It's the struggle on the family and the struggle on the caregiver. Or, I have an online support group called Hope After Head Injury, and we have like a couple thousand brain injury survivors in that group. And I've interacted with a lot of different people in different situations. And those who are married, they really struggle with their spouse relationship afterwards, because it's like dynamics change and shift. Those who are kids, like my experience is a pediatric type brain injury. And so my experience was more, how did it affect my parents and how did it affect my siblings? But there are people in our support group that are moms and dads, and they have a brain injury, and how do they raise kids? And when they're exhausted, still be able to make dinner for their family? And then how does it affect the kids and the husband or the wife while they're, trying to figure out their way through? And so that's something that is an unseen struggle. Another one is memory loss and implementing strategies, remembering to make doctor's appointments, remembering to get refills of medication. Over the last couple of years, my mom has been teaching me how to take more charge of my independence. I still live at home, and to the next point, unable to work and drive. I don't have my driver's license. There are still things that I struggle with my TBI, especially when it comes to headaches and cognitive fatigue and being overwhelmed and different things like that. And so over the last couple of years, my mom's been trying to teach me to make the calls every month to refill my prescriptions to the pharmacy. And there has been a couple times, more than a couple, that I run out of medicine and I'm like, I forgot, and so she's, and it's like, we do this over and over almost every month, where it's like, okay, when it starts to get low, that's when you need to call. So I've had to try and put reminders on my phone, but then I don't always remember. Even when I see the reminder, I don't always remember it. And so that's something I wanted to address, because so many survivors, we struggle with taking our supplements and taking our medicines on time. Some people have medicine schedules where they have to take it at a certain time, and just being able to deal with that. And so another one is social struggles, dealing with the social life. It becomes non-existent almost, or very limited. And I think this year, particularly with the pandemic, everyone's kind of feeling that in a sense, but brain injury survivors feel that kind of isolation that the whole world has been feeling. They feel it all the time. And I think this year made it a lot worse for brain injury survivors as well, because the fatigue of having to be on the computer a lot of survivors can't look at a screen that long. And so that becomes hard too. So brain injury is invisible. When the survivor looks fine, they're often misunderstood. The family struggles with understanding the survivor's daily life, friends understanding why they're different, doctors and medical staff understanding the patient's true daily experience. And that's something I want to address too, because a 1 hour or even 30-minute doctor appointment with a doctor once a month or even once a week, they might see you at your best, one-on-one, in a controlled environment, when you can talk to them. The doctor doesn't see when you're at the grocery store and you get so overwhelmed that you have a breakdown and you can't function because you're so overstimulated. And the doctor doesn't see when you're crashing at home and you can't put two words together. They don't see that. And so there can be, if the doctor doesn't really get it, it can be hard for them to even know what you're really going through. And the survivor struggles themselves, wondering why we don't feel as good as we look, especially for us ladies who just put on some makeup and, look in the mirror and there's been times that I've looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I feel inside, I feel disheveled. I feel messed up. My head hurts so bad. After a show, sometimes I get really, really bad headaches after I do a performance or speaking or singing. Which, side note, this year in 2020, I have not stepped foot on a stage since March 6th, which is the longest that I've ever gone in a really long time. And this year's been like really I mean, it's been hard, but it's been like a lot of like, I'm realizing hopefully better how to manage my energy for when I do go back to singing and performing. Because before this, every time I would do a conference or a show, I'd get so overwhelmed and so overstimulated that at the end, I literally would feel like I was going to fall over. But I would look in the mirror and my makeup was fine, my hair was fine, and I would fool myself and being like, I look fine, you know? Why do I feel this way? And so, yeah, that's a thing too. All right, so speaking of music, I am going to sing a song for you guys. I actually have a couple songs planned out, but this first one I'm going to sing is Hope Survives. And I don't know if we could probably just leave the presentation on. I don't know.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. I don't know what works best.
We talked about shutting it off just so she looks bigger for you guys.
I mean, what would you guys prefer? I can't see the chat while I'm doing this, but we'll just leave it on for the first song. And then if you guys want me to do it for the next one, we could always take it down. But
okay, that sounds good.
Okay, this song is called Hope Survives, and I wrote this song about living with a brain injury. The day is over, you start to crash. Exhaustion hits, but you can't relax. On the outside, you look fine, but each day you're fighting to get by. Isn't it crazy how nothing's the same? In just one moment, everything changed. With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. Hope survives. Starting over is hard to do, especially when you're thinking why your new normal does not feel right. But there is beauty in a new life. Isn't it crazy how nothing's the same? In just one moment, everything changed. With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. Hope survives. Hope is an anchor for your soul. Just hold on. Look how far you've come, and please know you are not alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. Yeah. Oh. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. Hope survives. Hope survives. Hope survives. and it can be hard to process through all of that. But if there's one thing you take away from this, I want to remind you guys that there is hope on the journey. So my next slide talks about the new normal. I found that little clip art with a little thinking bubble of the new normal, because it's like, what is the new normal? How do you think through that? How do you process through that? And one of the things that I think defines the new normal is moving forward despite your setbacks, despite your symptoms, despite your re-injuries. And it's hard to adjust and realize that life is different with brain injury. So I wanted to talk about the difference between the terminology for recovery versus the terminology of improvement. Recovery can imply a full recovery, which means to some people, back to how you were before the brain injury. And here's the thing, like, I've improved a lot and I'm considered recovered from where I was, but I'm nowhere near where I would have been had I never had a brain injury. I'm in my mid 20s. I would probably have had a driver's license by now. I would probably have not been living with my parents still. There are probably a lot of things that would look different on the journey. I still deal with chronic pain. I wouldn't have had so many concussions and re-injuries, because once you have one brain injury, it's really easy to get more. Your brain becomes more sensitive. And my entire life's full of strategies and accommodations, even today. And so I wanted to encourage us to change our language and take the focus off recovery and put it onto improvements, because I'm still seeing improvements after my brain injury. Like, I'm still having new moments of healing and moments of realizing, oh, wow, like a year ago, this was a lot harder for me. And now I'm able to do more, and finding new treatments and new therapies and new ways that help. And so I think it's important to take the focus off of working towards a full recovery, because especially when you're in acute care, that's usually what the doctors are trying to do. They're trying to help you get recovered. And then you feel like if you're not how you were before, that you've somehow failed on your journey. And I want to encourage all of you, you're not a failure. You've not failed. Brain injury is hard to live with. And the fact that you're here and you're watching this at this moment, the fact that you're continuing to push forward, means that you have come really far on your journey. And so survivors are encouraged by improvements, but discouraged by lack of actual recovery. And so I think it's important that we push forward towards improvement and at the same time look at how far we've come. So the journey to acceptance, heart with sparkles on it. I actually took these paragraphs from a post that I made on Instagram a couple weeks ago. I thought about just doing bullet points, but I don't know if I could say it any better than I wrote it. It might have been like a month ago, but I wrote this. It took me a long time to accept and own my brain injury. I used to be ashamed of it, or wanted to hide it or downplay it, or I thought that if I accepted it, somehow I would be giving up or resigning myself to it. But somewhere along the way, I realized that accepting my TBI doesn't mean that I'm giving up. It just means I'm acknowledging it as part of my journey. When we're able to accept the difficult parts of our story, it helps us to see the full picture more clearly. I also believe that it helps us to move forward in a fuller, more beautiful, and more complete way. So I wrote that because people might see me now wearing a t-shirt that says Brain Injury Warrior, which that's what this was under. I'll proudly wear a t-shirt that says Brain Injury Warrior, which I designed. Actually, they're on the Hope After Head Injury website. But I'll proudly wear Brain Injury Warrior, and I'll proudly say I'm a brain injury survivor. My Instagram bio, I wrote Brain Injury Warrior in that. And I'll talk about brain injury on webinars. And this is actually my first webinar. So thank you, North Dakota, for introducing me to a new thing. But, you know, I'll talk about it from the stage. I'll keynote at conferences and talk about my brain injury. I'll tell anybody on the internet that I had a brain injury. And people see that and they don't realize the years of struggle it took for me to get to the point where I could actually accept and own my brain injury. So don't discount the journey, and know that if you have to work through these emotions of, you know, wanting to hide your brain injury, being in denial, not wanting people to know, you know, that's natural and it takes time. But this fine line is between, like what I wrote, I thought if I accepted it, somehow I'd be giving up. And so this next slide, accepting your brain injury does not mean you are giving up. It does not mean that you're giving up. You can accept your brain injury and yet still have hope for more healing and hope for more in the future. So here's some tips and encouragement that I might have for anyone who is on the journey of wanting to accept their brain injury. Keep looking for new treatment options. You don't need to settle for where you are today. There is always something new. There's new research happening. There's new treatments. I know North Dakota Brain Injury Network, you guys had Dr. Schmo do one of these webinars back in the summer, right? He told me that. I met Dr. Schmo at the North Dakota conference, and this is where I first met him. And in 2019, last year, I was actually able to go to his clinic. And after a week there, I have seen more improvements on my journey. And this is over 10 years after my brain injury. I didn't know. I have dysautonomia. I didn't even know what dysautonomia was. I'd never heard of it. It's dysfunction of your autonomic nervous system. I had eye tracking issues. One of my eyes was not tracking with the other one. I had right-sided muscle weakness after my brain injury, which I knew about, but I thought it just kind of went away. Like the first couple years, it was really pronounced, and I kind of just thought it went away. I didn't realize that I still had imbalances. My right side reflexes did not work. And I posted a video on my Instagram and Facebook last year. If you're interested in seeing the video, let me know. I can send you the link. But the first day that I went to his clinic, my right knee reflex, he would hit it with the hammer and like nothing happened. And he was able to, through nerve stimulation and different treatments that he did in his clinic, at the end of the week, I had my right knee reflex back. So I was struggling just to keep myself upright all the time. My brain was always working on overtime just to keep me upright and having to do all the extra work because my reflexes were not working. And that can come from a brainstem injury to your brainstem. And so all that to say, I had accepted that I would never get better than I was. And Dr. Schmo proved me wrong by helping me last year. And so wherever you're at, keep looking for new options. Don't feel like where you're at today is where you're going to be forever. You can continue to find improvements for as long as you live, really. So the second tip is connecting with your mental and spiritual health. Sometimes with brain injury, we become so focused on our physical brain that we forget about our mind and we forget about our mental health and, you know, anxiety and depression. And so connecting with your mental health and with your spiritual health and with your spiritual health can be really helpful. I'm a Christian and my faith has been a huge part of my journey. But whatever like your faith is or wherever you are on your spiritual journey, like I definitely recommend connecting with that in some way. And, you know, if you listen to my music, you hear there's a lot of things about my faith because that's really what drives me and keeps me going. Another thing about mental health, there are 2 doctors/podcasts I might recommend. Dr. Amen, who is the founder of the Amen Clinics. He has a podcast called The Brain Warrior's Way with his wife, and I follow him on Instagram. Dr. Amen is really great about brain health. He's done a lot of research into brain injury, and I watched a talk that he gave. So I recommend Dr. Daniel Amen, and I recommend Dr. Caroline Leaf. I've learned a lot from her. She actually was one of the first people to do research into neuroplasticity back in like the 80s. So she was groundbreaking for brain injury. And she talks a lot about your mind and your mental health and how that connects with your brain. And so you can learn a lot from listening to her speak as well. And she also talks about faith. And so I find that really inspiring. She's a neuroscientist, and I watched an interview she did with Stephen Furtick at Elevation Church on YouTube. I just Googled Dr. Caroline Leaf. It was one of the first thing that popped up. I think it was something about cleaning out toxic thoughts or something like that. But I watched this conversation she did, and she does such a great job integrating in science, faith, mental health, neuroplasticity, brain stuff. She's great. So there's some tips I might have. Try journaling to work through your feelings, take up a new creative hobby, singing, painting, coloring, gardening. Some of my brain injury, some of my Hope After Head Injury support group members love to garden. That's like their thing. So I don't have that patience, but my sister does. Join a support group, call a trusted friend, and never give up hope for healing. So to kind of pick back up on my journey where I left off, it's been a process of finding my voice. Like I was just talking about, learning to accept my brain injury has been a long process. And when I started speaking for brain injury, it was 2015 that I posted a video on Facebook and YouTube called "You Look Fine, the Struggle of an Invisible Injury." I didn't really expect people to really see it. I just posted it. Like I had, I think, less than 100 people on my Hope After Head Injury page. It was mostly like friends and family. And then that video started to get shared, and it went like mini viral. And now it has like over 100,000 views. And from that one video getting shared, I started getting invitations to speak at brain injury conferences. And I was like, why would I speak at a brain injury conference? Like the first one that I went to, everybody had letters after their name except for me. And I was like, sure, I'm in the right place. Like they were all doctors and, therapists and stuff. And I was like, well, they asked me to come. So, but through that process of like getting those invitations and sharing some videos, I started to see the impact that my voice could have and the way that speaking would be able to help other brain injury survivors to know that they're not alone. And so in 2016, I started doing live videos on Hope After Head Injury. And it's been over 4 years of every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So it'd be 6 p.m. in North Dakota time. I do a live brain injury encouragement chat on Facebook. And it's just been really awesome connecting with the community there. I know Hannah's a part of that community. Can't see everyone who's on here, so I'm not exactly sure who's tuned in, but it's been awesome. And so it's just something that grew over time. And it's been a part of my process. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I launched a podcast called Hope Survives, Brain Injury Podcast. And there are 2 episodes out currently. The first episode I mentioned before, my mom spoke on it with me to share some of our journey. It was episode 1. And then episode 2, I had Monica from the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania and Dr. Jeremy Schmo on episode 2. So if you want to hear from Dr. Schmo, that one came out yesterday, and then there'll be more episodes coming out soon. So those come out on Tuesdays. So yeah, I wanted to let you know about that. Singing for hope, writing music, like the song I just sang, traveling, sharing hope. This was never something that I thought would ever happen. And I'm grateful for everything. But it's been a process of adjusting my dreams and my goals. Before my TBI, I wanted to be an attorney. Like I really wanted to be a lawyer, like super bad. I really wanted to go like Ivy League, and I had like all these dreams and all these plans, and I had this academic path set before me, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I was like trying to be valedictorian, and I was like, just crazy academically minded. And then afterwards, I really struggled with reading, and I could barely like read or do math or anything. And so school became like a really big, hard journey. And actually, I don't have this in the PowerPoint, but part of the journey of healing and restoration that I'm kind of experiencing right now is I started graduate classes earlier this year, and I'm getting my master's in theological studies. And I'm working on writing. I'm going to be writing a book. And well, my other book was a devotional, but I actually just signed with a literary agent to write like a real book. And so it's like, these are like dreams that before my brain injury, I had all these academic plans. After my brain injury, I thought that was gone. And I did music, and I was happy, and I was fine and content with like, I can do music, and I can speak about brain injury, and I can make a difference in the world. And since seeing Dr. Schmo last year, he helped my brain so much. I've been able to take classes, and I only take a couple classes at a time. I'm not like going crazy or anything, but this year has been like a huge piece of a part of my brain injury, part of myself that I thought I lost with my brain injury. I'm actually able to do school. I'm able to read my textbooks. There are some days that I can't, and that I get bad headaches, and I have accommodations and everything. But, we don't have to give up on our dreams. We just might have to do them differently. And so we adjust them. I've been reconcussed as recently as December 2019, and that actually set me back quite a bit. But it's all about finding new treatments. Mentioning I found vision therapy, vestibular therapy, and functional neurology that more recently have been able to be a part of my journey. So I'm going to sing another song. And this song is called Different Kind of Warrior. And it's about being a warrior fighting an invisible battle, which a lot of brain injury people can relate to. So also, I'm a little hoarse, but hopefully you guys can still hear me okay. I always thought a warrior was someone standing tall, someone fearless, someone brave, someone who'd never fall. But I hurt, I feel weak, I have pain, I can't speak. Yeah, I struggle and I bleed, I have fears I can't be. But maybe I always had it wrong. What if the strongest fighters are the ones who don't feel strong? I'm a different kind of warrior. You might not see me fight, but I know that I'm victorious every day that I'm alive. Even if nobody sees it, I will choose to keep believing. My story is not over. I'm a different kind of warrior. Putting on my armor as I lay my burdens down. Letting go, give God control and see Him all around. Yes, I hurt, I feel weak, I have pain, I can't speak. Yeah, I struggle and I bleed, I have fears I can't beat. But maybe I always had it wrong. What if my strongest weapon is a true and honest song? I'm a different kind of warrior. You might not see me fight, but I know that I'm victorious every day that I'm alive. Even if nobody sees it, I will choose to keep believing. kind of warrior. My fight might be invisible, but don't think it's not real. I've got faith for a miracle, trust in God to heal. So marching in a battle, confident of this, He'll finish what He started in me. Yes, I believe I'm a different kind of warrior. You might not see me fight, but I know that I'm victorious every day that I survive. Even if nobody sees it, I will choose to keep believing. My story is not over. I'm a different kind of warrior. Oh, I'm a different kind of warrior. Thank you guys. That song is dedicated to all brain injury survivors. It's on my album Declaration that just came out this year. And I actually found out this week that song is in the top 10 in an international songwriting competition, which I did not expect. This is a funny brain injury thing. I forgot I entered. So I entered this competition in like maybe February or March. And I was like, I might as well. I'll just send in a song or whatever. And I was like, it never hurts. I could just send it in and see what they say. And I got an email on Sunday that, oh, the winners have been announced. And I was like, did I enter this? And the email didn't say you're a winner. It just said the winners have been announced. And so I was like, oh, I clicked on the link and my name was on the list. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. So it's top 10 in the inspirational category. And so it's in the running now for like further prizes. I find out on Friday. So, but no matter what, being in the top 10 is really cool. So hopefully it's able to represent brain injury through that avenue, which is really exciting. So yeah, there's always hope. Every brain injury is different and you will continue to see improvement. I want to mention there's no timeline on healing. So some people might think in the first year, you might see all your improvements or in the first 5 years or whatever. And I want to say there's always hope for healing. So never give up. So moving forward, I put the picture there of my new podcast because, well, I'll just say moving forward, finding a reason to keep going on the hard days. Encourage survivors, and if you're a survivor yourself, to know that you can do whatever you put your mind to, but you might have to do it a little different. Find your passion and purpose and going for it. It took me a long time to launch this podcast. I've been doing live videos on Hope After Head Injury for the last 4 years, and I guess I started a different podcast. So I have 2 podcasts now. The other one's called Declaration Life, and it is more of a lifestyle podcast. I interview women about stories of overcoming. And so I've actually featured a lot of brain injury survivors on my other podcast, Declaration Life, but I've interviewed women who've come out of like all sorts of things like cancer, child abuse, just a lot of domestic violence, a lot of different circumstances, or just people who've struggled with mental health and how to have faith and to keep going. And so I started that podcast. And from there, I learned how to do a podcast. And I was like, maybe I should do one for brain injury. There's a lot of information that I would love to share in a more concise way and a more purposeful way than just randomly on social media like I do. So I planned it for a while before I even launched it. So I have like the first few episodes planned out. So yeah, you can check that out. But for me, that's representative of finding my purpose. I want to help bring people hope. That gives me purpose to know if I can make a difference in one person's life, that's what matters. I encourage everyone to surround yourself with a supportive brain injury community. The North Dakota Brain Injury Network is amazing. I love all the resources that they have. So if you're here from that network, like, you have an amazing community available to you. There are support groups all over the country, online support groups. You can join mine, Hope After Head Injury, if you want, on Facebook. But just as long as you have any type of brain injury people around you that understand, it can help you to keep going. And then music has helped me to keep going, and it's a way I found to help and encourage others. And so I've released songs, and my new album is called Declaration. I have a new single coming out this Friday. It's a remix of one of my songs called My Story Now. And then I have some Christmas music coming out in December. So if you like music, you can check that stuff out too, because sometimes I just need that creative outlet. And so, yeah. All right, speaking of music, I have one more song, and then we're gonna wrap it up. This song is called Not Giving Up. It's been one of those days, too much to say. Tears fall, tired of pain, doesn't seem to leave me alone. I can't seem to hold on, too much gone wrong. I try to be strong, there's more to me, more than I know. But if I'm being honest, some days I don't want to get out of bed. Happens more than I like to admit, but I know there's still life to be lived. So even on the hard days, I'm not giving up. Even when there's no change, I'm not giving up. And even when I'm afraid, I'm not giving up. I still believe that hope survives. There's still more story left to write. So I'm not giving up, up. No, I'm not giving up, up. No, I'm not giving up. Yeah, I'm growing through this. Too much at risk to just give in. Every day's a new day to try, and I know God has a plan. Even when I don't understand, I'll trust I'm in His hand. There's a reason I'm still alive. But if I'm being honest, some days I don't want to get out of bed. Happens more than I like to admit, but I know there's still life to be lived. So even on the hard days, I'm not giving up. And even when there's no change, I'm not giving up. And even when I'm afraid, I'm not giving up. I still believe that hope survives. There's still more story left to write. So I'm not giving up, no. I'm not giving up, no. I'm not giving up, no. I'm not giving up. I won't pretend that it's been easy, but I won't let this beat me. It's not the end. It's not the end for me, no. I won't pretend that it's been easy, but I won't let this beat me. It's not the end. It's not the end for me, no. So even on the hard days, I'm not giving up. And even when there's no change, I'm not giving up. And even when I'm afraid, I'm not giving up. I still believe that hope survives. There's still more story left to write. So I'm not giving up, no. I'm not giving up, no. I'm not giving up. It's not the end for me. Oh, I'm not giving up, no. It's not the end. It's not the end. So I'm not giving up. Thank you guys. So Yeah, I accidentally set that song too low. I put it on the wrong thing, so like it sounds super weird. But yeah, never give up. So there is help for survivors, support groups. Survivors need to know they're not alone. So there are support groups both for the survivors and the family. They both need to know they're not alone. So you can join in-person groups. Obviously, some of those are kind of on hold right now, or maybe meeting over Zoom, but connecting with your local group. But then there are also online groups. And then I also think it's important to educate family and friends. So the more that they know, the better. But they must be open and willing to learn. And some people run into family members that are not necessarily willing to learn about brain injury. But I think that education is the number one thing that can help family, friends, work, coworkers to help you the best and to help you to feel less alone. So brainline.org is a great resource to learn more about brain injury and common symptoms. There are a lot of websites and information out there. The North Dakota Brain Injury Network, you can check out their website and all the resources that they have as well. So yeah, that's the end. There's my website, cristabellebraden.com. If you want to connect with me on social media, I have 3 pages. My page, Cristabelle Braden, Hope After Head Injury page, which is probably where you guys are most going to want to be. And then if you're interested in the other podcast I told you about, the lifestyle podcast, that is Declaration Life. So, oh yeah, and my music's on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff. So yeah, that's it. Now, how do I get out of this? Okay, stop share.
Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Anybody have questions for her? You can put them in the chat or you can just unmute and ask.
Yeah.
Either way.
Let me see some of the things that are in the chat. Hannah said HBOT helped. Yes, that's awesome, Hannah. Can you please post those podcast names on your Facebook page? Yes, I can actually put the links in the chat for you guys. So Hope Survives Brain Injury Podcast, you can find at hopeafterheadinjury.com, headinjury.com/Hope Survives. And then Declaration Life Podcast. It didn't turn into a link. Sorry about that. I think I need to put www.cristabellebraden.com/Declaration Life. So there's the links to the podcasts, and then you can also find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever apps that you use. Yeah. Does anyone have questions?
No, but I'm so glad I muted myself because I sang with you to every song, every lyric of the first song. Hope Survives.
That's awesome, Hannah. Thank you. It's nice to see you virtually on here.
Yeah, I see you every week, but you never see me, so.
I know. I see your picture, though, on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Last time I was in North Dakota, Hannah did a Facebook Live with me, sharing her story. So she did
On
one
Hope
of the
After
chats with me.
I did that on Hope After Head Injury with you. Yeah, I was just clarifying.
Yeah, so if you guys want to hear her story, you can check that out on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that? Was that in Grand Forks or in Fargo?
Our conference?
Yeah.
So we usually go back and every other year between Fargo and Bismarck. So Cristabelle was with us when we were in Bismarck last. We were supposed to be in Fargo this past year, but canceled that. And now this year we should be back in Bismarck, but we've decided to go virtual because we're just still a little leery about keeping everybody safe. So, so it will be virtual, but the dates are March 25th and 26th. So
have that down.
Having it, but
Cristabelle, are you going to be there? Or, well, not be there, obviously, but are you going to?
I mean, if they want me to, but it's nice to see you again.
Oh, sorry. Yep,
Coley.
whoops.
You go by Coley?
Coley, yep.
That's your, okay, yes. I remember my mom and I had dinner with you at the, like conference hotel restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again.
Yes, you too. Yeah, absolutely.
Amanda asked about the speakers. You were talking about the podcasts to listen to, the ones you recommended.
Oh, those ones. Yeah, sorry. I thought you meant
Armand, Daniel
yeah,
Armand, and
Dr.
Caroline.
Daniel Amen and Dr. Caroline Leaf. And they both have tons of videos on YouTube, and they both have their own podcast. So I recommend both of them. I follow them on Instagram, and Dr. Amen reposts my things to his stories sometimes, and his wife just followed me on Instagram. So maybe I'll get to talk to him at some point.
Aw.
That was cool. Yeah, I was like, wow, I didn't know that. She followed me, so that was cool. But yeah, both of those are excellent resources, excellent doctors to learn more from. And they don't specifically talk to brain injury. That's why I think they're important, because we listen to a lot of specifically things about brain injury, but they both have done research into brain injury. Dr. Amen has done research into brain injury, and his clinics do the SPECT scan. Is that what it's called? SPECT scan. And he's done work with brain injury. Dr. Caroline Leaf has done work with brain injury and neuroplasticity, but both of them speak to mental health and the relationship of the brain and your mental health, and the way that your brain health connects to your mental health. And they both come from a slightly different perspective. Dr. Amen talks a lot about brain health, and Dr. Caroline Leaf talks a lot about trauma, dealing with your past trauma. She's a neuroscientist, and she talks a lot about like thought patterns and how like your mental health can have the impact on your brain. So it's like he kind of comes from the perspective of your brain having an impact on your mental health, and she kind of comes from the perspective of your mental health having an impact on your brain. And so they're both like really, really great to learn from.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amanda said, thank you. I have speaking issues right now.
Amanda, you're Amanda Restart?
Yes, she follows you
on Facebook. You were on the live chat last night. Were you the one who said you were having hot chocolate? Yes, it's nice to see you. Hi, that's awesome.
So I kind of have a little bit of a question for you. I know everyone's different, but for your post-secondary, what do you think the accommodations have been the most helpful for you? Because I help people with those accommodations. And what do you think, like, what are give me your top like 3 that you think have helped you get into graduate school and kind of continue all that?
Yeah. So one of the ones that I use constantly is extended deadlines on assignments.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's because I never know when I'm going to have a bad headache or a bad day.
Sure. Okay.
And if I know that I'm like kind of behind, I'll email the professor a day ahead of time. I always try to give at least 24 hours notice before the deadline. So that's something to encourage students on, because you never want to put yourself in a position where you're trying so hard to get it done by the time of a deadline and you're not able to, and then you're so frustrated. And that's for anyone, but especially with the TBI. And so I try to plan ahead. And if I know like I'm feeling off right now, I'll email my professor. And I attend Liberty University online.
Okay.
And I had my neuropsychologist who did a neuropsych evaluation on me that identified my brain injury. He had to fill out a form or write a letter or something and send my neuropsych and stuff to the school, the Office of Disability Accommodations. And the disability office was able to, from that, identify, and he had to give suggestions on things. And so they were able to give me accommodation. So I have extended time. I have 48 hours extra for any assignment, just as like basically a given. And then for long assignments like research papers, I have 3 to 7 days at the discretion of the professor. And so I will normally ask for 5 days, but every professor I've worked with has never had a problem giving me extensions. And then I've also, sometimes I've used it up to 7 days, but those have been a lifesaver. Extended time on tests. So my program is more writing based because it's in theology. And so we don't have a lot of exams, but we do have some exams and quizzes. And for those, the computer we use Blackboard, it allows me an extra 50% of time. And so if I go over the allotted time, it doesn't shut me out of the test. It lets me continue longer. And so those are the two that I think have been the most helpful.
Great.
But some people like to have accommodations for like their textbooks and stuff. We use digital textbooks.
Sure.
And so I've actually found that to be great because I can make the font size as big as I need to on my computer. And so I haven't had a problem with the digital textbooks, but yeah, it just depends. So we don't have lectures in like normal. We have videos that we can watch video lectures that we watch on our own time.
Okay.
So for my program, we don't have specific times to come in, but back when I was in undergrad, I had note takers as an accommodation that was really helpful for my in-person classes. And they would give their notes to the disability office and the disability office would distribute them. I also was able to sit in the front and I had a smart pen. So OVR actually got me the smart pen, and OVR is the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. And the smart pen would audio record my lectures while I was taking notes. So I'd be able to go back and listen to what the professor was saying because I would miss things when he would be talking so fast. And so because I have an online program, I can pause and rewind my lectures. And so that's actually been perfect for me because I don't have to worry about keeping up with it. If I miss what he said, I can literally rewind the video and watch it again. So that's been awesome for me.
Great. Thank you so much. I love all those recommendations. Good. Good. Thank you.
I'm actually planning to do an episode of my podcast about students and being a student in brain injury. And so yeah, if that's something that you do, I'm actually looking for people to interview about that. So maybe we could talk if you wanted to come on and talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I was a special education teacher prior. So I wrote IEPs and things. And now kind of the whole post-secondary, the 504 world's a little newer to me because I'm just not as familiar with what to even ask for. I know, you know what I mean?
You'd be perfect for the podcast. So, I mean, I'll snatch you up if you're willing to do the interview.
Sure, why not?
Stay tuned for Carly's interview.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, we can set that up for sure.
Oh, sounds good. Anyone else have any questions or anything? I feel like Angelina looks like she has something to say.
No, but a smart pen definitely helped me when I was in college to take notes. I sat in the front row too.
Good to know. Yep.
Yeah, it can be really helpful. And one of the techniques—
I even showed off my— Sorry.
You can say what you're going to say, Hannah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So all my college professors, they were all so interested in my smart pen and they thought that was the coolest thing ever. That's all I was going to say.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So one of the techniques I would use with it is, so the way it works is like you can connect it to your computer and you can see your notes. You have to put on you have to use special notebook paper and stuff, which you can get. But so if my professor was saying something that I knew I was missing or that was really important to the homework or the exam, I would put a star in the margin and I would draw a star. And then later I could go back and I could click on the star and it would play what he was saying when I wrote the star. And so sometimes it was hard for me to keep up with the notes, but I would often just put a star when I knew that was something I needed to go back and listen to that portion of the recording. And it helped me to keep it organized.
It's a great strategy. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and then being able to hook the smart pen up to the computer. My professors loved that because when we had to turn in our notes at a certain time, and then our professors would grade the notes and stuff, and then they might not get our notes back to us in time to study for a test. but it didn't matter to me because I just gave them the printed off copy. I still had my notes in my notes.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool.
But Cristabelle, I loved hearing you singing. I loved it. And I read through your devotion book. I think that's the only one I have so far.
The only one I've written, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Let me know when the next one comes
process of
out.
working on a second book, which will technically be my first book
Perfect.
because, well, the devotional I self-published through Amazon. So like I made it so I could sell it at my conferences and events, and I would have it because I really wanted to put out this devotional, and I did that 3 years ago. And now that I signed with a literary agent, it's technically going to be my first book because it's going to be my first book like through a publisher in bookstores and stuff like that. So hopefully if it gets picked up, which I hope it does, because I'm going to write about my brain injury. So yeah, it's going to be a book about faith through trials, and I'm going to share the story of the brain injury, and it's going to be encouragement on your identity and not placing your identity in your trials or your struggles, but knowing that, you know, you can find your identity in the Lord and that there's hope to move forward. And so that's what I'm working on.
Great. So Amanda's wondering what helps you most with your headaches.
There are a couple things. I would say when it's really bad, I have to go in a dark room and shut everything off and just kind of wait it out. Sometimes I will put on instrumental music in the background to kind of, that's calm, to kind of help me in that. I have a essential oil diffuser that I will like diffuse lavender or something that's really calming. I also have essential oil roller with peppermint. And the peppermint oil, when I would get these tension headaches on my forehead sometimes, and when I would roll the peppermint on my forehead, it helped, it relieved the pain a lot. That cooling sensation really has helped. I'll put it sometimes on the back of my head, up back here when I have migraines back there. So I find that's really helpful. Fish oil supplements, magnesium supplements are really helpful. Drinking enough water, staying hydrated, and eating protein is really helpful. And also blue light blocking glasses. So if you don't wear prescription glasses, if you wear prescription glasses, get blue light in your lenses. I wear prescription glasses, but I wear my contacts a lot. And so when I have my contacts on, I have blue light blockers, which you can see my light. And I got these from Amazon, and you can kind of see, I've shown these on the live chat before. They make everything like more yellow. I don't know if you can see on this camera, but they make, sorry, they're really dirty. They make everything more like yellow, and the blue light blockers actually help me when I have a headache or when I'm overwhelmed. I'll wear them in stores if I'm wearing my contacts. Sometimes I want to wear my contacts so I can wear sunglasses too.
Sure.
The ball cap helps a ton with my headaches because it cuts off the top of the visual stimulation. And so if I'm overwhelmed, like even if you just do this, it changes like just, it cuts off like 50% of your vision. And just by doing that and having any top lights coming down, the ball cap is hugely helpful for headaches. But I think that it depends how severe it is. So if I have a headache and I still have stuff to do, or I feel like I kind of need to do something, I'll wear a hat. I'll try and like do all these things that can help me. But if I have a headache and I can barely put 2 words together and it's hurting me so bad that I just can't function, I have to stop everything, take a break, go in a dark room, and sometimes not do anything the rest of the day. So I also get headaches when the weather changes and the barometric pressure changes. That is like, I get really bad headaches when that happens. And medication. I have a migraine rescue medication that my neurologist prescribes that can help as well. with that. Oh, Nicole said yoga has helped me. Oh, that's good. Yeah, some sort of exercise can definitely be helpful, especially like mobility and stretching. Gets the blood flowing.
Even if you just go on YouTube, they have, and you put in there yoga for TBI or TBI patients or TBI whatnot.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yes.
cool.
Anyways, um, they have some sessions that have helped me, so that's not bad.
Yeah, that's such a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Dr. Schmo has given me exercises too, which I don't do enough. But he's given me exercises that help, like he doing figure eights
Yeah.
can help stimulate the brain, and so that really helps me too when I'm starting to feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those kind of things can help. Angelina said, I crochet or latch hook sometimes. That's so cool. Yeah, something calming that's like a repetitive thing that can definitely be helpful.
The
Sorry.
no, go for it.
Well, over the summer, like in June, I actually made my own like crocheted blanket. Like I actually have one.
That's so
And
cool.
I'll show you what colors it is. Hang
That's
on.
dedication to make a whole blanket.
No
It
kidding.
takes a long time.
Yeah,
Takes a
that
lot.
does.
I
That
would
would take
never
a
have
lot.
patience.
I like made a huge blanket.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
huge. It's huge.
That's so cool.
That's awesome. Way to go, honey.
And then I'm actually making with latch hooking. I'm making my great aunt a tree skirt for Christmas. So it's like
Oh,
huge.
that's so nice.
So yeah.
That's so cool, Angelina. You are a girl of many talents.
So Amanda asked another question. How do you get doctors to take you seriously?
Well, find a different doctor usually.
Yeah.
Not gonna be like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or be rude. If the doctor doesn't get it after you've explained your TBI a bunch of times, you probably need a second opinion. You probably need to try another doctor because that you might need to find a brain injury specialist or a different doctor that's going to be able to help, because there are some doctors that think that they are always right and they are determined to misunderstand us and they don't care because it doesn't affect their daily life. They just think that they're right, and if they can't physically see it, they don't understand. And so I don't know how to get them to take you seriously besides finding a more compassionate doctor. Oh yeah, my mom commented, yeah, a PM&R doctor, a physiatrist can be really great. A lot of them specialize in brain injury. I do recommend connecting with Dr. Schmo, potentially seeing if he could be a good fit. I know that he does some remote stuff right now, so you might want to call his office and just see if maybe he could help you, but it depends on what your specific symptoms are, whether he could help or not. But I think, yeah, I've had that issue with a neuropsychologist before that just like, my one neuropsych had retired and somebody else took their place, and the person that took their place was not as good. So we had to find somebody different. Annalise, oh, my sister came on. Yes, thank you. Thanks for coming. My sister's a student in neuroscience. Actually, she's doing graduate research in neuroscience. Yeah, she's awesome. Amanda, you're seeing a functional neurologist. Good.
And that's what Jeremy Schmo is. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's what he is. I definitely think functional neurology is on the cutting edge of brain injury. There are a lot of other doctors out there that can help, but I do think if you want something cutting edge, functional neurology is probably the place to go, especially if you've exhausted all the other options that's usually when people end up at functional neurology after they've tried everything else and nothing has really worked. So I'm really glad to hear you're seeing a functional neurologist. That's good.
Yes, my present doctor, we're switching, or neurologist. When you go in and you say, well, I'll see you back in a year. What? Like, a part of me thinks, okay, do you care about the patient, or do you think the patient should maybe get a little bit more attention?
Yeah, what I recommend, or at least what's worked for me, is my physiatrist, my PM&R doctor is my main care doctor. So I follow up with my physiatrist more often. I have a neurologist for headaches only. So he's a headache specialist.
Okay.
So my neurologist is not necessarily treating my TBI. My
Okay.
physiatrist is treating my TBI. My neurologist is only there for headaches because that's his specialty, headache specialist. And he and his PAs are actually great. And they have found different things. Something else that's helped with my headaches is a gamma core device. So I tend to respond really well to electric stim and that type of treatment. And the gamma core device, unfortunately, was not covered under my insurance, but they were able to do it in the office for me. And it's just a device that stimulates the vagus nerve. All it is a vagus nerve stimulator. And that helped my headaches tremendously. I haven't been able to go in since the pandemic started, but I do recommend looking into the gamma core. There's another device called the Cephaly device. And the neurologist I go to is really open to alternatives. They're the ones who recommended I go on magnesium. I tried a Jovi, which is one of the, what's it called? CRPG. I forget the acronym, but it's like a blocker of a certain thing. It's one of the shots. So you see all those ads on TV for Emgality and Ajovi and Aimovig. So I took that last year and I was on it a couple months. It did get rid of my headaches, but it also got rid of all my sense of understanding my brain injury because like all my other symptoms got way worse and then I didn't have any pain. So I never knew when I was getting overwhelmed or overstimulated. Right. So it did what it promised. It took away the pain, but at the cost of me getting so overwhelmed that I couldn't function. And so, and it also caused hair loss, significant hair loss. And other side.
I wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah. So I stopped taking that, but I tried it. And so my headache specialist neurologist has been really good with finding a bunch of different things that might work or trying out new solutions. And so I think there are doctors like that out there. You just have to find them.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do think that most neurologists will not be good as your primary doctor for TBI because they're just not trained in it. So seeing a physiatrist, a PM&R, or a concussion or brain injury specialist, that's the person that will most likely be able to help you in terms of finding treatments and resources and understanding your symptoms.
Do you have seizures?
I don't. No.
Sorry, that was very personal. But
no, it's fine. I'm obviously doing a webinar about all my symptoms, so it's not too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But I do have a neurologist on my team. I just don't view him as my main person, if that makes sense. He's like,
completely.
He's like a supportive part.
Right. He's a part of the team. Yes. No, I will definitely look into the psychiatrist. I guess we've never really looked into that. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Any way I can help.
Well, thanks, honey.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Last chance for questions.
Guess not.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
functional neurology and neurologists are the same. Not exactly.
No, they're not the same at all.
Yeah, not, yeah. No.
No, they're not even, no, they're not the same. Yeah, there's a functional neurologist is actually trained chiropractor and neurology. So they integrate like your whole body's system in with your brain. So functional neurology is usually like the Carrick Institute is like the lead place where they train them. And so Dr. Schmo was trained there. There are a bunch of functional neurologists all over, but a regular neurologist is not the same as a functional neurologist because they don't have the chiropractor side to them. They have other training that can help, but functional neurology is very different than regular neurology. That's a good question.
Yes, it is. North Dakota, we have one in Fargo that I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he presented at our concussion symposium. So I can definitely get you his information if you're in North Dakota and you wanted to connect with him at all. But yes, Jeremy Schmo's in the Minneapolis area. So, but you can do some kind of telehealth type consults, and he's also a functional neurologist. So, yeah. Well, I think I'll stop our recording and let you guys get about your day, and hope to see you all at our next webinar Wednesday. And yeah, Cristabelle, let's set something up. And
Yeah, sounds good.
so
Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Bye. It was good to see you again.
Yes, for sure.
All right.
Thanks for letting us know on the Hope After Head Injury chat.